Hola chicos, bienvenidos a otra lección del capítulo 1. Welcome to another lecture of first chapter. Today, our topic continues with los saludos y las presentaciones. So greeting and introductions. Again, you should know by this time, right? You should know ¿cómo te llamas? We should know the answer to this question, which means what's your name, right? And you know that to respond to this question, you need to have a greeting, right? Me llamo Nancy, soy de blah, 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 mucho gusto, right? So, ¿cómo te llamas? It means what's your name. Soy de, you're adding that just for an introduction when you want to say you're from Stockton, you're from Lodi, etc. Right? But for the greeting, think of a greeting, right? Right now, this is kind of like your warm-up for this lecture. So think of your greeting. What greeting are you going to use? And you can write this in your notes. This is for you, okay? Your greeting. Which one are you using? Are you using hola? Are you using buenos días? Are you using buenas tardes, right? Buenas noches. Which one are you using? Decide on that right now. And then add me llamo to that greeting. So you're going to have buenos días or hola, me llamo, state your name, soy de, state where you're from, and mucho gusto. We know that mucho gusto means pleasure. And whenever you have mucho gusto, the response for another person when you're introducing yourself should be igualmente, likewise. Okay. And so you're going to see a lot of these type of dialogues in your homework and for Connect. And so whenever you have, this is something, right? And you're gonna see a dialogue where it's gonna have me llamo, blank, or it's gonna say the name and you have to fill in with me llamo, right? So you have to identify what is it that the other person is saying or responding to, so you can identify the type of question that you need to fill in those blanks. But every time in those dialogues, you're either going to see mucho gusto, and then the following dialogue is going to have igualmente, or the person's response is going to have igualmente. And so you know that igualmente and mucho gusto are always the same, right? If you have mucho gusto, then the response should be igualmente. Okay, hope that makes sense. But we'll look at some of those examples. And so in the other lecture, we learned about ¿cómo te llamas versus ¿cómo se llama? Can you think of the reason why these two are different? Okay. ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo se llama? So, ¿cómo te llamas tú versus ¿cómo se llama usted? If you could recall the reason or why we have these two questions that mean the same thing, but why are they written differently? Why are we using te and not se in the other one, right? So why? Think about it. And if you say that one of them is because you're using the tú, the informal tú, right? You're correct, but which one? Right? We know ¿cómo te llamas? This question is directed to someone that you know, to a friend, a sibling, right? Because you're using informal, the informal tú. ¿Cómo se llama usted? You're using the formal tú, and you're using it with a parent, your boss, your professor, someone who you don't know, an older person, right? ¿Cómo te llamas versus cómo se llama? And so we went over this in the previous election. Okay. ¿Cómo estás versus cómo está? Again, the informal tú, we're using it with ¿cómo estás with friends. ¿Cómo está with no es is using the formal you. Informal, formal, ¿vale? Again, you can use tú and usted at the end of the question just to emphasize that you're using a type of form. So if you can ask ¿Cómo estás tú? And you can also ask ¿Cómo está usted? Just to emphasize, hey, I'm using tú, or you can use tú with me, or I'm using usted. Please use usted with me, okay? Now we have some examples here, dialogue. So tenemos a Eva Longoria y a Salma Hayek, and hopefully you know who these people are. So tenemos a Salma, Eva, who is asking or having a dialogue with Salma Hayek. So Eva starts with, Hola Salma, ¿cómo estás? Salma contesta, she answers with, Hola Eva, estoy regular. ¿Y tú? She says, Yo estoy feliz. Okay, so we have a basic dialogue here. They're just asking how each other how they are, right? How are you doing? I'm going good. I'm fine. Estoy regular, and we saw this vocab in our other lecture. Estoy regular. Well, I'm doing all right. Just regular. Okay. Although we wouldn't say regular in English. I'm doing regular. You say I'm good, right? And so, can you identify in this dialogue, are they using tú or are they using usted? Think about it. You can read it again. Hola, Salma, ¿cómo estás? Hola, Eva, estoy regular. ¿Y tú? Yo estoy feliz. What are they using? What form are they using? Are they using the informal tú or the formal tú? If you said that they are using the informal tú, you are correct. Why? How do we know that? Right? The question here, ¿cómo estás? It has an S at the end of estás. ¿Cómo estás? That indicates that she's using the informal tú, right? And then Salma confirms it with her answer. She says, Hola Eva, estoy regular, o estoy bien. Y tú, right? So she sends that same question, ¿Cómo estás? So with this little question, she's saying, and you, right? So remember, whenever someone asks us, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. And you, right? Y tú, and that and you is like you're asking that same question back to her. Okay. So y tú, and you, basically, and you, how are you doing? Right? Y tú. And so by using that tú here, she's confirming that yes, we're friends, we're colleagues, so we know each other. We're using tú. We're not strangers. We're not like we're not each other's bosses, right? And so yes, she's confirming, okay, we're using tú. Y tú. And she's like, yo estoy feliz. Gracias, right? Or thank you. And so this is a basic. Now that we know the basic dialogue, right? Hola, we have the greeting. If they know each other, they can ask each other, ¿Cómo estás? O ¿Qué tal? Right? How are you doing? If they were strangers and didn't know who each other were, then you say, ¿Cómo te llamas? And then we start again with, what's your name? And doing all that introduction. However, we have another person who has joined the chat. See? And so, estoy feliz. So now we're going to read this. Other dialogue. Mira, look, te presento a mi amiga. Se llama Victoria Beckham. Mucho gusto, Victoria. Encantada, Selma. And she says, hasta pronto. Okay, goodbye. So what is she doing right now? What is Eva doing in this dialogue? See? She says, look, te presento a mi amiga. I introduce you to my friend. Te presento. Again, the use of te, right? Remember that te, como te llamas, is using that informal. So even in the introduction to someone, she's still staying with the tú, with the informal you, right? Mira, te presento a mi amiga. I introduce you to my friend. Se llama, her name is, notice here is se llama because we're talking about, she's introducing the other person and not saying what her name is, right? So we know it's me llamo for yourself. Me llamo. But if I'm introducing someone else and I'm saying her name is, see, se llama Victoria Beckham. And hopefully you recognize the last name, Beckham. In reality, they are friends, okay? Eva and Victoria, they're really good friends. Anyway, se llama, right? To say her name is. So you have, mira, te presento a mi amiga, se llama Victoria Beckham. Then Salma says, mucho gusto, Victoria. Again, mucho gusto means nice to meet you, pleasure to meet you. And then we have another one. that it's kind of new to us. Encantada, Salma. This is essentially the same thing as mucho gusto. So if you're not using mucho gusto, you can use encantada or encantado, right? It depends. If it's female, then you would use encantada. If it's male, encantado, Salma, ¿vale? So we have te presento a mi amiga, and that's what I want you to write in your notes, right? Te presento a mi amiga for introductions. And then se llama blank, okay? Because this is what you're going to use to introduce someone to a friend, to a colleague. So again, yo, right? It's you, and then a buddy or a friend, una amiga or un amigo, right? And you're introducing that friend to someone else, to a third person, okay? You would use te presento. I introduce you to my friend. I introduce you to my sister. Te presento a mi hermana. Te presento a mi padre. Te presento a mi madre, right? So you're going to use te presento a. That's going to be your cue of, okay, I'm introducing someone to someone else. Okay. I'm introducing my friend. I'm introducing my sibling. You would use te presento a, and then you say the relationship. In this case, is mi amiga, my friend. Okay. If it were to be a sister, te presento a mi hermana. Te presento a mi padre, right? A mi, my. I introduce you to my sister. I introduce you to my mother. Okay, whatever the case may be, whatever the relationship may be. But te presento, that is a phrase that you're going to be using. I introduce you to my, right? Te presento with informal to, right? Because we know that they cool, Eva and Sama, they cool, they know each other, and so they're using informal to. Now, if we look at the formal, right? We have Eugenio Derbez and we have Betty White. Okay, so we'll read it together. Hola, ¿cómo se llama usted? Hola, me llamo Betty White. ¿Y usted? ¿Cómo se llama? Me llamo Eugenio Derbez. Encantado de conocerla, señora White. Mucho gusto, señor Derbez. ¿De dónde es usted? Yo soy de México. ¿Y usted? Yo soy de los Estados Unidos. ¡Qué interesante! Le presento a mi esposa, Alessandra. Mucho gusto, Alessandra. Encantada, señora White. Adiós, and nos vemos. Now, this is a little bit longer, okay? But Eugenio and Betty White, they might have heard of each other, but maybe this is the first time that they're meeting, right? And so he starts with hola, a greeting. ¿Cómo se llama usted? What is your name? What is your, like, formal you? Okay, because we're using como se llama usted. So he's still emphasizing it, all right? Because then maybe they're both older people, right? Or she's older than him, and so he's respecting, right? He doesn't know her, she's older, and they're meeting for the first time. It's like, he doesn't want to be too informal and disrespectful. So yes, he's using usted. ¿Cómo se llama usted? What's that question asking? What is your name? Okay. She responds with, hola, me llamo Betty White. Again, she reinforces it by using y usted. ¿Cómo se llama? Right? And you, formal, what's your name? So remember when Salma said y tú, right? So she's asking the same question. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? I'm doing well. ¿Y tú? Right? So she's sending that question back. The same thing is happening here. Me llamo Betty, right? White. So she's answering, what's your name? She's saying, my name is Betty White. And you, right? ¿Y usted? ¿Cómo se llama? So she could have just said, ¿y usted? Question mark, right? To send back the same question, but she's still emphasizing that question. ¿Y usted? ¿Cómo se llama? So you're going to see it both ways. You can just see ¿y usted? With both question marks. And she'll be asking, what is your name? Or you can also write out the same question again. ¿Y usted? ¿Cómo se llama? He says, me llamo Eugenio Derbez. Encantado. So remember, encantado and mucho gusto, they are essentially the same thing, right? But with encantado, we are playing that with the feminine and masculine, right? So encantado, because he's male. So encantado de conocerla. Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. Señora White. Señora. That is another part of our vocab. Señora White. ¿Vale? Señora is like Mrs. White, right? So we know for older people we say ma'am or Mrs. This is what it means. Señora White. Then she says, mucho gusto. Nice to meet you. Señor Derbez. So señora is for female, señor is for male. Mr. Derbez. Señor Derbez. Then she goes on to ask another question. ¿De dónde es usted? Again, usted. To emphasize that, hey, we're keeping it formal here, all right? ¿De dónde es usted? What is that question asking? Think about. Maybe dig deep in your brain because we've gone over this question. So think about it. ¿De dónde es usted? And if you said the question is asking, where are you from? Correct. Muy bien. ¿De dónde es usted? Where are you from? Keeping it formal again. ¿De dónde es usted? And he's from Mexico. Yo soy de México. ¿Y usted? Again, ¿y usted? He's answering where he's from. And yo soy de México. And so he sends back the question back. ¿Y usted? Essentially asking, and you, where are you from? She says, yo soy de los Estados Unidos. I'm from the United States. Cool. He says, qué interesante. How interesting. See? And then he goes on to introduce his wife, su esposa. ¿Vale? And he says, he has this phrase, le presento a mi esposa Alessandra. So what is the difference between te presento, this one up here, te presento versus, oops, le presento. So you have two, te presento and le presento. And the other one, las chicas, the females over there in the other dialogue, they're friends, see? They're cool. They're friends. They know each other. They're using informal you. In this case, they're keeping it very formal. They're keeping it respect. Not that the other ones are disrespectful, but they're keeping it more formal in this place. See? So, le presento. So when you're introducing your friend, tu amigo o tu amiga, to someone else, but that someone else is your boss, is your professor, is your, let me see, who else? Is your abuelito or abuelita, right? Your grandpa or grandma, but because they're older, right? Or someone you just met yourself and you're like, hey, let me introduce you to my other friend so we can all be friends. See, you're going to use le presento. Let's just take that you are introducing your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your significant other to your grandpa or your grandma, right? Just think about that. That scenario. Oh, I'm going to introduce my significant other to my grandma. Got it, right? So you're going to say, hey, abuelita, le presento, let me introduce you to my significant other. Le presento a mi pareja, to my partner. Let me introduce you to my partner, see? So you would want to use le presento because she's your grandma, right? And you're gonna you respect her, right? Or she's just older. And so you're going to be using the form of you, the formal you, okay? Le presento. So let's go back to our whiteboard here. We have just this. Te presento. Uy. Ah. Te presento a. Okay. Te presento is informal. You're still using informal you because you're saying, let me introduce you to, and then this is a formal you. Okay, so te presento a. Let me introduce you to. Right? It's a little proposition here. Te presento a. And then you're going to say, you're going to add a mí. Depends what relationship. Remember, we talked about relationships to you. So let's say, again, a mi pareja, right? Let's take that example that you're introducing your partner or your significant other to your grandma or your friend, okay, or your sibling, okay. So the informal you is you're going to be using it if you're introducing your partner to your sister, right? And hopefully you get along with your sister. Te presento a mi pareja. Or me introduce you to my partner. Te presento. Again, if it's a sibling, if it's a friend, you're going to be using the informal you, and you're going to be using this phrase. Te presento a, and then say a mi pareja, my partner. Le presento is if you were introducing your partner to your grandma or your grandpa. See? Le presento a mi pareja. So this is the same thing. A mi pareja, a mi pareja, a mi amiga, my friend, or mi amigo, right? But this is what's going to change depending on who you're addressing. If you're addressing it to your friend, to your sister, or someone who you really know or you're comfortable with, you're going to be using te, or you're going to be using le. If you're introducing someone who you yourself just met, your grandpa, your grandma, your boss, your professor, you want to keep it formal. Okay, so hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to see with these examples. So we have the informal you and the formal you. Okay, so we're gonna keep this. Oh, so I'm gonna ask you this. So let's say, take this example. Hola, ¿cómo te llamas? And let's actually do this. Cat. There you go. So think of someone who, so this dialogue is going to go something like this. So you're going to say, hola, ¿cómo te llamas? So there's 3 different dialogues here. Hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Again, you're going to use this. Me llamo. There you go. Okay, so we're going to practice with this dialogue. So I want you to think about introducing your friend to me. Okay, and now you can use do. You can use the informal do with me. You don't have to use the formal. So we're going to use for this first practice, you're going to be using the informal you with me. So I'm going to be asking you the first questions, right? And I'm gonna give you like a little rundown. So if I start with hola, ¿cómo te llamas? You should answer with hola, me llamo, blah, blah, blah. See? And you're going to, oh no, you're going to answer with your name. Hola, me llamo blank. And then you're going to ask me, ¿y tú? And I'm going to say, me llamo Nancy. And if I'm the one presenting, I'm going to start the dialogue. If I'm the one presenting, I'm going to say, te presento a. Okay. And let's see. There you go. I'm gonna introduce you to someone. Okay. So I'm gonna keep going with me llamo Nancy. And then since we're using the tú, the informal tú, I'm gonna use te presento a una amiga. Again, the A means female, right? So if it's a friend, a male friend, then you would say te presento a un amigo, right? If I'm using a female friend, then I'm going to say te presento a una amiga. And then I'm going to say her name. Se llama blank. Your response should be encantado o encantada. And then my friend would say igualmente o mucho gusto, right? So I start with A. So I'm student A, student B. Hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Me llamo Nancy. Te presento a una amiga. Se llama Frida Kahlo. She would answer igualmente or mucho gusto. So that is it. So it's second time. I have my friend here. You can choose anyone, some fictional character, if that is what you want. You can introduce me to your sister, to your doggy, anyone. Okay. So you're gonna practice this with hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Me llamo Nancy, ¿y tú? Blah, blah, blah. Me llamo, blah, blah. Okay, so this assignment, you're going to record it. And I'm going to record my voice, and you're going to record yourself answering to those type of questions. That way we can have sort of like a dialogue back and forth, just introducing someone. So you're going to find this on the Canva page. If you have questions on how to do this, please send me a message. But this is an assignment that's going to be listed on the assignments list. Again, I'm going to start it. There's going to be like 2 different ones where I'm going to start the dialogue just like we did now. I'm going to say te presento, right? I'm going to use that type of phrase. And then we're going to switch it where you'll start the conversation by using hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Then I'm going to respond with hola, me llamo, blah, blah, ¿y tú? And so we're going to switch it. And then you're going to say me llamo, te presento a una amiga, un amigo, se llama, blah, blah. And I'm going to say encantado. And then you'll say back with igualmente o mucho gusto. So hopefully that will work for us. I've had a couple of issues with that before, but hopefully that is not the case for this one. So there is an assignment for this specific topic that we covered, which is the introduction. So introducing someone else, right? So we know how to introduce ourselves. We know what type of questions to ask, how to answer basic questions, but now we're introducing someone else. So we're bringing back someone with us, right? And so find that assignment and complete it, okay? Before you move on to our next activity. Okay, chicos, complete the assignment before you move on to the next lecture. That's what I meant. Okay, chicos, nos vemos en la otra lección. See you on the next lecture. Ciao.